again. And I enjoyed interviewing so much last week that I decided to do it again, okay? And it's a real treat. At this time, I'm going to ask Deborah Woodward to introduce Melissa, right? Melissa, I got it. I want to say Lee, but anyway, Melissa Fountain. And she is, well, you'll get to know her, okay? She's a pretty special person, let me put it that way. I've spent some time with her. And I see her as enlightened, although when you say that to somebody who's enlightened, they say, no, I'm not. But I'm going to let Deborah introduce her. One of the things that Deborah Woodward's done is brought to us this Svroopa yoga. How many of you have participated in some form or fashion with it? So you're somewhat familiar with it, okay? And and what's happened is over time we have integrated the yoga with unity, because there are many paths to God. We know that. There's not just one. Unity isn't the only one. But it might be for some people. If it's right for you, it's right for you. And there are many other paths. And then there's an integration, if you would, of paths to God, where we take in different parts of different paths and make it into our practice so that we are, I think, more whole, more open, more one with all around us. And Deborah's done a beautiful job of that the last number of years. And so, Deborah, would you come forward this time and introduce Yogeshwari? I did it.
So Lissa Yogeshwari Fountain is a dear friend of mine from Boston, Massachusetts. And she led the wonderful, wonderful yoga workshop that we had over the weekend. She has been practicing Svroopa yoga for 21 years. She is a leading teacher who travels the country, leading workshops. She works closely with Swami Nirmalananda, who developed this style of yoga, the teachings that are filled with such power and such grace that we felt this weekend through the workshop. So we are in for a treat this morning. And Lissa Fountain.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thank
and
you.
for taking this risk of sitting here with me. You know, Deborah mentioned that you've been in yoga for 20 years, doing Svroopa yoga actually for 20 years. What has that, how did you get into it? And then what's that experience been like as you look at it over time for you?
Okay, well, hi everyone. It's great to be here. Before I answer your question, I do want to mention that I just had an amazing 2 days here in your sacred space. And there is an energy to this room, to this community that I felt instantly when I came in. I felt supported, I felt enlivened by the beauty of the unity message the whole weekend long. So I do want to thank Richard and Vicki and my dear friend Deborah for inviting me and to get this opportunity to be with all of you too. It was a very a special time. So how did I find yoga, Svroopa yoga, and how has it developed over the years?
Yeah.
Okay.
20 years and
20 years,
no.
so more or less. Well, I was always a spiritual seeker, and from a young age, and started my first career out in the performing arts, and then I got married and I had kids, and I really, once I was in family life, my spiritual longing got even stronger because parenting was a big challenge, as a lot of you know, and I knew I couldn't do it alone. So I started turning away from performing arts more towards a more spiritual way to be with my body, which is yoga. And I was lucky enough early on in my yoga path to find an extraordinary teacher, this Swami Nirmalananda. She developed this very compassionate style of yoga that was not based on athleticism or superficiality, but it was really based on finding your true self, who you really are. And I was hungry for that. And so I found my way to her, a harried young mother, youngish mother. Wasn't that young by then, but still. And what I found was that my body, which I had always pushed very hard in performing arts, was actually something else. It was I had known it was an instrument of the divine intellectually, but I had never experienced it in my body. So here was a teacher that opened up for me an experience of consciousness in my body. And so I got hooked right away. The healing was very profound. And I went right out to teacher training. I met her for one weekend at a retreat center, and I said, this is it, I found my path. Went home to my husband and said, you got the kids, I'm going to California. And my boys were little, so it was a big risk, but I went out there. And she turned my life upside down and inside out, and I found out who I was. But it wasn't that easy. You're talking about delusion, illusion, all that. So it's been the path. I thought I would go there, and in 3 weeks I would be instantaneously transformed. Bingo, the silver bullet was all going to happen in 3 weeks. And I came back, and I was on a pink cloud for about 3 months. And just as she predicted, life started creeping in again. So it's been a long journey to embrace my inner divinity and seeing everything as divine, without reaction, without objection. I'm still on the path. Thank you for saying I'm enlightened.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
But I'm not.
See, I told you she'd say that.
But I can say that I'm enlightening. I am enlightening. I'm lightening up. So devoted myself to the practices, to teaching, to integrating what I was learning about my body and the soul into my family life and into my business and my practice. And to me, it's all one. I don't see any difference. My home is a suburban house, but it's really a temple to the divine. And people that come and visit it know it instantly when they walk in, because it's infused by love for God. And that's my commitment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Your husband?
Oh, yeah.
We're not going to talk about him a lot, but I'd just like folks to know, because the reason I want you to know is that some of us take on unity or take on a different path, and our spouses don't take the same path, or our significant other, maybe, and that it's okay. And how do you work with that? Because it's not that your husband, you are a difference of opinion, but you also find your oneness in a different way.
That's true. And my husband is a Protestant minister. Yeah. I shouldn't surprise you, really. I married a little bit later in life, and I thought I might want to go to seminary, actually, when I was in my 30s. But then I figured out I didn't want to do that. But in the back of my mind, I thought, maybe I'll marry a minister. Well, guess what? Somehow.
The power of imagination, huh?
I got set up on this blind date with this wonderfully charismatic man, and I knew after the first night that he was going to be my husband. Took about 3.5 years to achieve that mission, but we got married, and he's a UCC minister and a wonderful guy. And he is, people say, is he a yogi? And I would say yes, he is a karma yogi. He serves God very diligently with a big servant's heart. Is he interested in my interpretation of spirituality? Yes. But he doesn't choose to follow it himself. So we live in a very sweet coexistence. And we share scripture, but I also shared the teachings from Kashmiri Shaivism, which is the philosophy of yoga that I study. He's very open to it, and so I feel that we're very unified in spirit, but have different paths, but they support each other. He does things in his ministry that I couldn't even conceive of doing, and I do things in my line of work that he can't even imagine. So it's a nice mix.
Thank you for sharing that. So you really honor one another.
We do. We do.
And obviously you love one another.
Very much so.
Yes, and it works for you guys.
It does. And I will confess, since I'm in a church.
We don't really do that.
Can I do that here?
Well. The confessional booth is right behind you. Thanks, everybody.
I would be less than 100% honest to say there's always going to be just a little wee little part of me that wishes he would join my path completely. Why wouldn't there be? Because it brings me so much joy. I say, oh, you'd be so much happier if you did it my way. And then I say that might be the ego talking, so I better leave that alone. But I do harbor a small fantasy that maybe after he retires, he might hang up the clerical collar and come over to my camp and start doing more yoga. But anyway, we'll
Do you
see.
think it's possible he has the same fantasy that maybe you'll come over to his camp?
No.
I just thought I'd check it out.
No, but nor would he want that for me.
No,
He loves the fact that we're so different in those many ways. Diversity is good.
And
so
much
much
alike.
alike, right?
Yes, thank you. Would you just take a second? So a number of people here don't know what Svroopa yoga is, don't even know what the word Svroopa means. I took me 3 years to learn to pronounce it even. And so
You're doing good.
I'm working on it. And if you would just take a moment to kind of explain it as to how it is as a practice and some of the ideas behind it and why it's important to you and to many.
Oh, well, sure. Well, Svroopa is actually a Sanskrit word. If you break it down, the SVA, the Swa, means the self, the divine inner essence. And Rupa means your form, this form, your form. So it means that your form, your body, yourself, is the divine self. Very much in line with everything that Unity believes, really. And this yoga was developed by Swami Nirmalananda, 30 years ago? Probably, something like that. And she had been deeply moved in meditation. She started her yogi path as a deep meditator, and then the spirit, we'll call it the spirit, started moving her body in these amazing positions, and she started developing these yoga poses that came from internal inspiration. And she codified it over time and started working with bodies, human bodies that are very tight, very misaligned, and figured out a way to use blankets and props and support so she could bring these extraordinary experiences she was having in her own body when she was doing poses, help the average person have those experiences too. So Svroopa yoga is really a yoga that's, it's a very spiritual yoga, it's a very meditative yoga, but it's also a very powerful physical healing yoga. Deborah is an expert teacher at this. She knows, you walk into her class, she'll take a look at your body, get you settled on the floor, start putting blankets and blocks and props under you so that your spine is completely supported. And then you start working your way in to releasing your spine's tensions. And so you start opening your body from the inside out. It's a very different kind of yoga than a lot of other styles.
Mm-hmm. I've taken some of it. I don't do it regularly, but I did for a while. And I've got to admit, one of the things that happened for me is that since I can remember, I was never able to get in a yoga position. But with 16 blankets and 3 or 4 towels and Deborah's help, I got in a yoga position. And I even was able to get out of it. That was really the cool thing, okay? But it is a wonderful way in which to relax the body and to align the body, really. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Why is that important? Why is it important to align the body, I guess, starting at the tailbone and working up?
Okay, great question. Your spine is the conduit of consciousness. So you can feel this if you just put your feet on the floor, sit back in your chair, ease the sides of your neck back a little bit so your head's sitting over your spine. Sit down in your seat, soften into your seat. Let the two rocker sitting bones that are at the base of your pelvis, let them sit down into the seat. Soften your belly. Begin to feel your breath moving slowly in and out. Feel your back supported, relaxed against the chair, and the base of your hips and pelvis relaxed and supported at the bottom of the chair. And bring your awareness inside to the inner core of your body. And inside your body is the support system of your entire body, your spine. And your spine is arising from the very base at your tailbone that sits right between those two sit bones you're leaning on. And your spine arises up through the core of your body, through your neck, and through your head. Relax yourself around that internal column of support, your own spine. Allow it to support you as you sit there. Softening into and around your whole spine. And take a nice deep breath in. A slow, easy breath out. And then open your eyes. Did something shift for you? Do you feel the same as you did before? No. So your spine is the conduit of consciousness. So the spiritual teachings can tell us that you are consciousness. But Svroopa Yoga gives you the physical, experiential knowing of that by drawing you inward toward your own spine and starting the release of your physical tensions at the base of the spine. So that's why the spine's so important.
Mm-hmm. So it opens up the energy channels.
It's what?
The energy channels? Is
Oh,
that the right word?
yes.
Opens
It's
up
the
the
conduit
energy
of consciousness.
Yes.
It's the conduit of the divine energy that moves from your base all the way up through your neck and head to your crown chakra, right up here.
So you came back after your first experience and you had, as you said, being in the pink cloud for about 3 months. All was blissful, and then the world opened back up.
Yes. Well, no, the world closed back down on me.
Oh, thank you. That's better. Okay, thank you.
The world was open.
Thank you. Okay, the world's already open. We're
Yeah.
the ones that closed it down. You're right. And so you experienced heaven on earth, is what we say in Unity, for a few months.
Yeah.
And then, would you say the ego got in the way?
Yeah.
And does it still get in the way, or have you passed that?
Oh, I wish I were past that. But I will say that I'm making progress, and that I'm now, the poem, that line from that Paramahansa Yogananda poem was so beautiful. Floating in the ocean of consciousness and watching my little tiny ego. I would say it's shifting more like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still aware of my ego's propensity to pull me into objection, comparison, judgment, all those things. I am not free of that yet, but I'm more aware of it when it happens,
Mm-hmm.
and less imprisoned by it. Yeah.
So consciousness is a growing of awareness? Do you think, or how would you describe
Consciousness is
it?
you,
Okay.
but we're already fully enlivened consciousness. But the human condition layers on. I don't know what you called it, Vicki, but I'll just call it coverings. It's like the schmutz that's on your windshield in your car, right? You can still see through your windshield while you're driving, but then one day you decide to clean it up. and you get the Windex and you really wash it down. And you look through the windshield and go, wow, now I'm seeing. So we have all these mental coverings. And so it's not like we're not already pure, whole, and consciousness itself, but we have layered on through lifetimes many, many coverings, they're called. Yoga has a lot of interesting words for it. But you can think of it as schmutz.
I will from now on.
Not my word, Swami's word. It's a great one.
Yeah. How does, I noticed, Melissa has a very active practice at home. I looked at your website. I was pretty amazed at the different people who are involved and the different ways in which you reach out to people. And one is called therapy yoga.
Oh.
And what does that mean? Is that different than Svroopa yoga? Or how do you mean that?
Oh, okay. So yoga therapy, and Deborah is a yoga therapist as well. Yoga therapy is a wonderful one-on-one tool that we use in yoga to help people that are really committed to taking their yoga to the next level. So we work individually with people with different hands-on techniques and therapies to help them access their spine and their tailbone even more profoundly. Yeah.
So you're really doing the yoga, but one-on-one?
Yes.
And with a focus on the different aspects of that particular person's
so many
body.
different kinds of yoga therapy. We have one technique that's called embodiment, where we just work with your spine and tailbone directly to help you become more embodied. Doesn't that sound good? To be more embodied. Sometimes we'll work with the poses, helping you get more aligned. Sometimes we'll work with your mind. One of my favorite forms of yoga therapy is an inquiry process called vichara, where we talk. And we just put a focus on your mind and watch how your mind works its way into the briar patch, right? And then we try to figure out yourself, just by non-directive questions, how the mind's really messing you up. So that's one of my favorite kinds of yoga therapy.
That's wonderful.
The self-inquiry. Yeah.
Now, meditation, I know when I first took the yoga, I was focusing on doing what Deborah said do. And there were parts of it that were easy, and there were parts of it that were a little more difficult, for me anyway. And so meditation wasn't on my mind. Is there a time when you start to, I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you, is there a time when you move from that into understanding there's a state of meditation that you're going into and you're part of?
Oh, I think I understand your question. I'll just tell it from my own perspective. I was what we'll call a hatha yogi, a yogi that was very interested in the poses and the physical endeavor of yoga. It took me a long time to turn myself around to see that it was about my mind, that really my body wasn't the problem. It was what my mind was doing to my body. And because I was such an active person, to ask me to sit still and turn within to meditate was a daunting task. So I did it, but reluctantly and inconsistently. And then my teacher, Swami Nirmalananda, who for about the first 2/3 of my history with her, she was mostly just an asana teacher, an asana and meditation teacher. And then an extraordinary thing happened to her. About 8 years ago, she decided to take the plunge and commit herself to Swami vows, to become a monk. And so she then turned away from teaching the poses and decided to just focus on meditation. So she was going to start to, what she calls, give us the rocket fuel to get us to the self. We had just been kind of tiptoeing around it. So I think in the last 8 years, I have definitely become more, definitely more dedicated to daily meditation and going deeper and deeper within. And I'd say that's made the biggest difference. I don't know if that's the answer to your question.
It is the answer. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One of the things people get involved in when they do meditation, though, I've found, as they talk to me, is there's an expectation of what to happen. what's supposed to happen. Is there anything that's supposed to happen in meditation, or how do you see that?
That's a great question. Yeah, we were just talking about it this weekend in the retreat, actually. People were saying, I thought that while I was in meditation, that I wasn't supposed to be thinking anymore. But I still kept having thoughts. So I think meditation is about being completely without thoughts. Or I thought meditation is supposed to be about staying alert and awake and paying attention to everything that's happening the whole time you're in there, turning within to yourself. But I keep falling asleep, people were saying. So that can't be meditation. So one of my favorite parts of teaching a yoga weekend or teaching a meditation series is when people come up with these comments after they've meditated. I love getting to tell them that, yes, you're still meditating, even when you're having thoughts, that you don't have to banish your thoughts when you're meditating. Your thoughts can still be there. But the more you meditate, they won't bother you. You'll start to watch them from that big ocean of consciousness and just see them for what they are. And if you're falling asleep, that's very good, because it's not sleep. It's a deep meditative state called samadhi that Vicki was reading to us about in the poem. So, yeah.
This has changed a little bit. One of the most, I think, for many of us, especially in the West, is a misunderstanding of what the word guru means, what a guru is, and the purpose of having a guru. I've had unity ministers say, I want nothing to do with that, because I feel like I'm supposed to be worshiping something other than spirit or God. You have a guru. In your words, how would you define guru, and what is the relationship you have with your guru, which you've mentioned 2 or 3 times?
Wasn't expecting this question.
I know.
I'm deeply honored.
No.
What a sacred space that you can ask me about a guru in such a wonderful, unthreatened way. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I do spend a lot of time with my guru. I spend a lot of time teaching with her, and I'm often asked to give talks on what is the guru. So this is one of my favorite subjects, and I'm going to keep it brief. But I will just start with the word guru. People think of a guru, because it's been so twisted and in our culture, as someone in orange robes that drives around in very fancy cars and asks you to give them all your money. Am I right? Okay. And there were some like that, so I won't deny that. But a guru is, let's just look at the word, guru. Guru, G-U. Guru, G-U is a Sanskrit word for darkness. Ru is light. So the guru is one who brings you from darkness to the light of your own being. Guru isn't so much the person, although it is the person, but the guru is more, think of the guru more as a conduit for grace. Guru is one of the 5 powers of God. Guru actually is another word for grace. So if you're on the spiritual journey, which I always have been since I was a little kid, and you're finding that your own efforts to find inner peace, the inner Lord, we're constantly getting waylaid and just frustrated. Then, if you can I had to, say, well, I need some help, and I can't do this alone. And so, here's this person who's offering herself in service to me to help move me along my path. So I don't have to do it alone. So that, to me, is the purpose of a guru. It's a daunting task to try to get enlightened in this lifetime. So it's good to have one that you can follow who's already there and living in the self all the time.
So a guru is considered one who is already self-realized?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
who chooses. I mean, there are many self-realized people in the world, but not all of them want to be gurus, right? So what makes a guru is that they are enlightened, but they choose to serve others. Their purpose is to bring others to the self.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful. It was helpful to me to see the guru in a different light as one who is a reflection, as we would say in unity, of the Christ within.
Mm-hmm.
They are the reflection of that for you, and they see that in you. So when you behold the Christ in someone else and open your hearts to that, you are, in essence, maybe for a moment, a guru. Okay? So don't hide from it or be afraid of it, to say the least. I wish we had another hour, but we don't. And I just would love to thank you for being here, for sharing yourself so authentically, and for enlightening each of us in a very special way this morning. Thank you so much. God bless you.